And continuing with the first chapter of The Whispering Mountain, Owen is locked up in the museum under strict orders not to let anybody in, and he has decided that he is done living there. He's written a letter to his grandfather saying he's going to get on a ship. He is a little bit too proud to go find the Dandos and stay with them, but suddenly there is a knock on the door, and we will back up to where the video cut off last time. At this moment, Owen was startled by a single loud bang on the front door. His heart shot into his mouth. Could Waffa and the others, discovering that Mr. Hughes, whom the town boys disliked but held in considerable respect, was from home, have agreed that this would be a good time to raid the museum? Or could Erebus and her father have returned? No, sadly Owen dismissed that idea. Full of apprehension for his trust, he made his way to the porch, opened the peephole in the outer door, and looked out. He found his face 2 inches from another, a broad olive-colored countenance, with 2 splendid black mustachios and 2 enormous chestnut-colored eyes. "My dear sir, friend, mister," said this face, "I beg pardon exceedingly, but I have disturbed your repose. But could I speak with the custodian, curator, guardian of your museum?" "I'm afraid the museum is shut," Owen said. He did not want, if he could help it, to disclose the fact that his grandfather was not there. "Hi-ho, alack, yes. I have already ascertained as much from your notice," agreed the visitor. "But the gentleman whom I wish to interrogate, catechise, moot, frisk, reconnoit, Mr. Hughes, is he within?" "He can't see you," Owen said stoutly. "He is engaged at present." "Oh, lud. And will he never be at liberty, scot-free, out of harness?" "I do not think he will be free tonight, sir. May I take your name and make an appointment for you to see him tomorrow?" "There would be no chance of a peep, just one glimpse, glance, espial, at all your beautiful treasures and antiques while I am here?" "Oh, not a chance at all, I'm afraid, sir. Mr. Hughes is very strict about opening hours." "Lack-a-daisy, of this I have been appraised, advised, tipped the wink, in that case, as I would not wish to do anything obstreperous. Please tell him that the Seljuk of Rum will do himself the honour of waiting on Mr. Hughes tomorrow at 10 precisely." "The Seljuk of Rum!" "If you please, and until then, I wish you top of the night, my dear sir." The black mustachios parted to reveal a brilliant flash of white teeth. The large face nodded, bringing into view a section of high cap made of black, tightly curled fur, and then the visitor turned on his heel and was gone. Owen, puzzled, anxious, and very much wondering if the mysterious caller had believed him when he said that Mr. Hughes was engaged, shut the peephole and made his way back to the library. The harp stood for the present on the big table in his room, which, since Mr. Hughes' unwelcome introduction of sleepers' tickets, was still little used. Regardless of his grandfather's prohibitions, Owen carefully removed the canvas cover from the harp and stood for a few moments admiring it. It was not the full-size modern instrument, tall as a man, but a traveling harp, the sort used by Henry VIII, about 2 foot 6 inches high, which was intended to be balanced on the player's knee. Owen, who loved mathematics, thought of it as a triangle, which had been blown by the wind so that one side had bellied out and up, giving a line like that of a ship's prow. The maker had evidently seen this likeness too, because the frame, which was richly carved with leaves and fruit, had a kind of figurehead at the top corner, staring up and ahead away from the player. The metal of the frame was tarnished with age and dirt to a bronzed dark green, nearly black, and the snapped strings hung curled in fantastic twists and tendrils. But although the harp was dirty and broken, Owen thought it one of the most beautiful things he had ever seen, and he could not forbear passing his hand round the graceful flowing lines of the frame, and then plucking with the tip of his finger at the last remaining string. The sound it gave was low but piercingly clear. It seemed to fill the whole room with echoes. Glancing nervously over one shoulder, but no one was there, Owen lifted the pillar of the harp and tucked the letter underneath, so that one corner showed, then replaced the cover which protected the harp from dust and damp. He had no intention of violating his trust by going off and leaving the museum unguarded. He meant to slip away as soon as Mr. Hughes had retired to bed. Meanwhile, as he was very weary, He crouched on the floor. He thought there would be less chance of his dropping off to sleep on the ice-cold flags than if he sat on a chair. Reading was forbidden, so he recited to himself all the poems his mother had taught him. When he had gone through all his stock, he tried to recall the prophecy that Erebus had quoted that afternoon. When the whispering mountain shall scream aloud, and the castle of Malyn rides on a cloud, then Malyn's lord shall have and hold the something harp of gold. Then shall the despoiler that was so proud fall headlong down from the devil's leap. What could the lines mean? The Whispering Mountain was another name for Fig Hat Ben, the mountain that lay between Pennygaff and the next town. Nant Agerdow. Owen knew that it was called Whispering. Why, minded Sibrid, because inside the mountain, in a cave known as Devil's Leap, there was a hot spring which constantly gave off steam and made a bubbling or whispering sound. In bygone days, the place was thought to be haunted by Elilion, ghosts who stretched long, skinny arms out of the water and pulled you in. If not, by Waibwaisibo, old Horny himself. But now people went there to take the waters for their rheumatism, and the little town, Nant Agerdow, had sprang up in the rocky glen below the cave. But how could a mountain scream aloud? And who was the despoiler who would fall from the Devil's Leap? The leap itself was a great gulf boiling with steam inside the cave, whose depths no man had ever dared to plumb. And the castle of Malyn was, of course, at Port Malyn, on the coast, 10 miles away. How could it ride on a cloud? Puzzling over these mysteries, Owen tried to remember the last line, something about the harp of Teirtu. Then shall the children from the darkness creep. What children? What darkness? And something or other about disaster. And the harp of Teirtu find her master. It did sound as if the harp were in some way definitely connected with the Marquis of Malyn, which was a pity, as by Erebus's account he certainly did not deserve to possess such a treasure. Owen gave a deep, unconscious sigh that was half a yawn. His eyes closed. With a guilty start he forced them open and sat upright, but in a few minutes his head was nodding forward again. Erebus, he murmured, 9/10 asleep. Erebus, no use waiting at Devil's Leap. Then, gently and silently as sand falls in an hourglass, he toppled sideways onto the floor and lay curled up, fast asleep, underneath the table. One slow tear trickled from his cheek to the dusty flagstone on which it was pillowed. His slumber was so profound that he never heard the crunch of footsteps outside, nor the cautious creak of the back door as it slowly began to open. And that's the end of Chapter 1.